Supreme Commander Vexthor stood motionless before the massive holographic display, his iridescent scales reflecting the soft blue glow of countless star systems. The war room of the Nexarian flagship, Eternal Victory, fell silent as the gathered officers watched their legendary leader study the latest intelligence reports. Earth, a seemingly insignificant planet on the outer rim of what the Nexarians considered civilized space. The preliminary reports had been dismissive. A young species barely capable of interplanetary travel, still reliant on primitive chemical rockets and fossil fuels. They hadn't even established their first permanent colony beyond their moon. "Show me their weapons," Vexthor commanded, his voice carrying the metallic resonance characteristic of his species. The hologram shifted, displaying Earth's military capabilities. Projectile weapons, basic energy shields, nuclear arsenals that the Nexarians had surpassed millennia ago. First Scout Captain Lyra, her scaled crest marked with the distinctive purple of the Intelligence Division, stepped forward. "Supreme Commander, our analysis suggests they would be unable to penetrate even our most basic defensive screens. Their most advanced fighters would be no match for our smallest patrol vessels." Vexthor's primary eyes narrowed while his secondary set continued scanning the data streams. In 15,000 years of expansion, the Nexarian Empire had never encountered a species they couldn't quickly subjugate. Their biomechanical technology, perfectly melding organic and synthetic components, had proven insurmountable. "What of their infrastructure?" Vexthor asked, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "Primitive but unusual," Lyra responded, manipulating the hologram to show Earth's cities and industrial centers. "They build redundancies into everything. Multiple power grids, communication networks, transportation systems, inefficient by our standards. But," she hesitated. "Speak freely, Captain." "They seem to expect things to fail, Supreme Commander. Rather than build perfect systems as we do, they build backup systems, and backups for their backups." Vexthor absorbed this information silently. In Nexarian society, failure was unacceptable. Their technology was perfect, their military strategies flawless. The concept of planning for failure was alien to them. "Launch the first wave," he commanded. 3 hunter-killer groups. Standard conquest protocol." The assembled officers chittered in surprise. Such a small force for planetary conquest was unprecedented. "Supreme Commander," his second-in-command Kralvex protested, "standard protocol calls for at least 10 hunter-killer groups for a world of this size. Are you suggesting the mighty Nexarian Empire needs 10 hunter-killer groups to subdue a primitive species that hasn't even mastered fusion drives?" Vexthor's voice carried a dangerous edge. Kralvex's scales flattened in submission. "Of course not, Supreme Commander. 3 groups will be more than sufficient." As the officers filed out to execute his orders, Lyra remained behind. "Supreme Commander, there is one other detail. During our covered observations, we noticed something peculiar about their entertainment media." The hologram shifted again, showing scenes from human movies and television. Scenes of humans fighting against overwhelming odds, of defeating superior forces through cunning and determination. Stories of resistance against powerful invaders. They seem oddly preoccupied with scenarios of defending against technologically superior enemies, Lyra noted. "They've been imagining this exact scenario for over a century." Vexthor dismissed this with a wave of his primary manipulator. "Fiction. Fantasy. It changes nothing." But something in those images nagged at his warrior's instincts. These humans seemed to relish the role of underdog, seemed to dream of overcoming impossible odds. The hunter-killer groups departed 12 hours later, their biomechanical ships sliding through space like massive predatory fish. Each group contained 5 capital ships and their support vessels, crewed by the finest warriors in the Nexarian Empire. Their mission was simple: secure the planet's strategic points, neutralize any military resistance, and prepare Earth for integration into the Empire. As Vexthor watched them depart, He felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries, a faint twinge of uncertainty. He dismissed it immediately. After all, what could these primitive humans possibly do against the most advanced civilization in known space? He was about to learn that humans had a habit of defying expectations. Fleet Commander Ixis watched in disbelief as another Nexarian dropship exploded mid-descent, its perfect biomechanical structure torn apart by what his sensors indicated was nothing more sophisticated than a primitive guided missile. These humans were supposed to be helpless against Nexarian technology, their weapons barely able to scratch their ship's living armor. Yet in the 12 hours since the hunter-killer groups had arrived in Earth's orbit, they had lost 6 dropships and 2 support vessels. The humans weren't fighting according to any logical military doctrine. They were using outdated weapons in unexpected ways, combining technologies that shouldn't work together, and most disturbingly, adapting their tactics with every engagement. Status report, Ixis demanded, his scales shifting to a darker shade of blue in frustration. The humans are using their satellite network in ways we didn't anticipate, his tactical officer reported. They've repurposed civilian communication systems for military coordination. They're using weather satellites to track our movements. Even their primitive orbital debris is being weaponized against our ships. Ixis's secondary eyes blinked rapidly as he processed this information. The humans were turning their own technological inadequacies into advantages. That orbital debris they'd been too primitive to clean up. They were now deliberately directing it toward Nexarian vessels, forcing them to constantly adjust their shields and expend energy. What of the ground forces we've managed to deploy? The tactical display shifted, showing the status of Nexarian troops across Earth's surface. The image made Ixis's scales ripple with anger. Their first wave had targeted military installations as per standard protocol, only to find them largely empty. The humans had dispersed their forces before the Nexarians even arrived, using their primitive but numerous satellites to detect the approaching fleet. The humans are employing what they call guerrilla tactics, his intelligence officer explained. They refuse to engage our forces directly. They strike at supply lines. They ambush small groups, then disappear into the terrain. They're using their inferior numbers and technology to their advantage. Most infuriating was how the humans were countering Nexarian biomechanical superiority. Their ships and weapons were living technology, capable of adapting and healing. But the humans had quickly discovered that this made them vulnerable to biological and chemical agents that would have no effect on purely mechanical systems. They're using agricultural pesticides against our ground forces, the medical officer reported, mandibles clicking in distress. Common industrial chemicals that interfere with our tech's biological components. They're even using something called electromagnetic pulses that disrupt both the organic and mechanical elements of our systems. Ixis watched as another dropship took evasive action against a barrage of missiles. The humans had learned that while their weapons couldn't penetrate Nexarian shields directly, they could overwhelm them with multiple simultaneous attacks from different directions. They were using their planet's diverse environments to their advantage, forcing the Nexarians to constantly adjust their biomechanical systems to different conditions. Send a priority communication to Supreme Commander Vexthor, Ixis ordered. Request immediate reinforcements. These humans, he paused, his pride making the words difficult to speak. These humans are proving more resourceful than anticipated. As if to punctuate his words, alarms blared across the command deck. Multiple human aircraft approaching, the tactical officer reported. They appear to be primitive supersonic bombers, but they're broadcasting signals matching our own fleet protocols. Ixis's primary eyes widened in shock. Impossible. They couldn't have decrypted our communications this quickly. They haven't, the communications officer replied, voice trembling slightly. They're just broadcasting every signal pattern they've detected from our ships, creating confusion in our recognition systems. Our automated defenses can't distinguish friend from foe fast enough to respond. The humans weren't trying to match Nexarian technology. Instead, they were finding ways to turn it against itself, exploiting weaknesses that no species had ever thought to exploit before. Their very primitiveness was becoming a weapon. "Launch all fighters," Ixis commanded. "Switch to manual targeting only. And send another message to Supreme Commander Vexthor. Tell him." He watched as the human aircraft began their attack run, using maneuvers that no rational military doctrine would recommend, yet somehow proving effective. "Tell him we may have underestimated these humans." In his 15 centuries of military service, Fleet Commander Ixis had never encountered a species that fought quite like this. The humans weren't just resisting. They were innovating, adapting, finding ways to turn their every weakness into a strength. For the first time in his career, he felt something that no Nexarian warrior was ever supposed to feel: uncertainty about the outcome of a battle. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood in the analysis chamber aboard the Eternal Victory, surrounded by holographic displays showing captured footage from Earth. His scales had taken on a pale, almost white coloration, a sign of deep concern among his species. For the first time in Nexarian history, a simple conquest had turned into a protracted engagement. "Play it again," he ordered, watching footage from a fallen warrior's neural recorder. The scene showed a human military unit disabling a Nexarian walker not with advanced weapons, but with something the humans called construction foam. They had discovered that the walker's living armor would instinctively try to absorb and adapt to any substance it contacted, a strength in normal combat, but a weakness when faced with a material designed to rapidly harden. "Fascinating," First Scout Captain Lyra commented, her purple crest rippling with intellectual excitement despite the gravity of the situation. "They're not trying to overpower our technology. They're finding ways to make it defeat itself." The next footage showed human civilians converting ordinary vehicles into weapons platforms, repurposing agricultural equipment into anti-aircraft batteries, turning their primitive but abundant satellites into a sophisticated early warning system. Every human defeat seemed to spawn 3 new innovations. "They learned too quickly," Kralvex growled, his scales dark with frustration. "Every tactic we use works only once, sometimes not even once, as if they anticipate our strategies before we employ them." "Show the civilian response analysis," Vexthor commanded. The displays shifted to show how Earth's population had reacted to the invasion. Instead of the panic and submission seen in every previous conquest, humans displayed an almost inexplicable response to being attacked by a superior force. "They're unifying," Lyra explained, bringing up population behavior data. "Instead of fragmenting into competing groups as expected, human nations are pooling resources. Scientists are sharing research openly. Military forces are coordinating globally. Even their civilian population is organizing to support the war effort." Vexthor watched footage of human children collecting electronic components for recycling, elderly humans teaching young soldiers about obsolete weapons that proved effective against Nexarian shields, civilians turning their homes into medical centers and repair stations. "Their entire species seems engineered for warfare," Kralvex observed. "Not through biology like our own, but through," he struggled to find the word, "adaptability," Vexthor finished. "They have turned their entire civilization into a weapon." He gestured to another display showing human entertainment broadcasts continuing despite the invasion. "Look at how they maintain morale. They laugh in the face of defeat. They create art about resistance. They turn their losses into inspiration." The command deck fell silent as they watched a human news broadcast showing a destroyed Nexarian walker being turned into a memorial, its biomechanical components studied by human scientists even as civilians covered it with symbols of defiance. "Supreme Commander," a junior officer interrupted, entering the chamber with urgency in his movements. "We've decoded more of their historical records. You need to see this." The displays filled with scenes from human history, countless wars, conflicts, and struggles. But what caught Vexthor's attention wasn't the fighting itself, but the pattern it revealed. "They've been practicing," he realized aloud. Their entire history is a series of smaller forces defeating larger ones. Primitive weapons overcoming advanced ones. Inferior numbers prevailing through innovation and determination. Lyra's analysis appeared on an adjacent screen. Human military doctrine is built on the assumption of fighting superior forces. Their strategic thinking, their technology, even their cultural narratives all prepare them for exactly this type of conflict. They're not fighting to win. Vex Thor said softly, his scales shifting to a deep purple of revelation. They're fighting because they don't know how to stop. Every defeat makes them stronger. Every loss teaches them. Every sacrifice inspires greater resistance. The chamber erupted in urgent alerts. Multiple human counterattacks detected. The tactical officer reported. They're using our own dropped weapons against us, sir. Somehow they've learned to interface their primitive computers with our biomechanical systems. Vex Thor watched as human forces began yet another series of seemingly suicidal attacks that would undoubtedly reveal new weaknesses in Nexarian defenses. His species had spent millennia perfecting their technology, becoming the ultimate warriors. But these humans, they had spent millennia perfecting something far more dangerous: the art of being unpredictable. "We have made a terrible mistake," Vex Thor announced to his stunned officers. "We thought we were the apex predators of the galaxy. But we've spent so long being perfect, we've forgotten how to evolve. These humans, they'd never stop evolving. And we have just given them the ultimate motivation to evolve even faster." The bridge of the eternal victory shuddered as another human attack impacted its shields. Supreme Commander Vex Thor no longer felt surprise at such occurrences. In the 3 months since the invasion began, humans had progressed from barely being able to scratch Nexarian defenses to launching increasingly effective attacks against even their most powerful vessels. Multiple breach attempts detected. The security officer reported, his scales flickering between combat red and anxiety green. "The humans are using our own captured biomechanical components to create hybrid weapons. Our systems can't distinguish them from friendly units until it's too late." Vex Thor watched the tactical display as dozens of small human craft swarmed his fleet. They had learned that Nexarian biomechanical technology was vulnerable to rapid environmental changes, and they exploited this weakness relentlessly. Some human ships would flash free sections of Nexarian vessels, while others applied intense heat, creating stress fractures in the living metal. "Status of the ground campaign?" he demanded, though he already suspected the answer. "We've lost contact with 60% of our surface forces," Kralvex reported grimly. "The humans have developed some kind of biological agent that disrupts our neural networks. They're distributing it through their atmosphere using their primitive weather patterns." A new alert blared through the command deck. "Massive energy spike detected." The sensor officer called out. "Multiple human vessels on approach vector. Configuration unknown." Vex Thor's primary eyes widened as the tactical display revealed the humans' latest innovation. They had taken the organic components of destroyed Nexarian ships and grafted them onto their own vessels, creating hybrid ships that were neither fully human nor Nexarian technology. The resulting craft were ugly, asymmetrical things that should not have been able to function, yet they moved with deadly purpose. "Impossible," Kralvex whispered. "They couldn't have mastered our biotechnology so quickly." "They haven't mastered it," Lyra corrected, her purple crest rippling with unwilling admiration. "They're not trying to replicate our technology. They're forcing it to work with theirs in ways we never considered. Look at the power signatures. They're using their primitive nuclear reactors to overstress the organic components, pushing them far beyond their design tolerances." As if to demonstrate her point, one of the hybrid ships exploded spectacularly. But the explosion itself seemed intentional, releasing a wave of energy that disrupted the biomechanical systems of nearby Nexarian vessels. "They're not afraid to sacrifice their ships," Vex Thor realized. "They build them expecting them to be destroyed, and they design their destruction to serve a purpose." The battle unfolding before them defied every principle of Nexarian warfare. The humans were using tactics that no sane military commander would consider, combining technologies that should have been incompatible and treating their own casualties as opportunities to learn and adapt. New signal detected, the communications officer announced. The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies, using our own encryption. How? Krolvex demanded. Our codes are based on quantum biological principles. Their science couldn't possibly. He fell silent as the message began playing throughout the ship. It wasn't a demand for surrender or a threat. Instead, it was a simple statement that chilled every Nexarian who heard it. We have learned from you. We have adapted. We have evolved. This is what we do. This is what we have always done. You can either continue this fight and force us to become even stronger, or you can talk. Choose wisely. As if to emphasize the message, another wave of hybrid ships emerged from Earth's atmosphere. These ones showed even more extensive integration of Nexarian biotechnology, suggesting the humans were improving their designs with each engagement. Supreme Commander, Lyra spoke softly. Our latest projections indicate that at the current rate of human technological adaptation, they will achieve parity with our forces within 6 months. Within a year, she left the implications unspoken. Vexthor stood silent, watching the battle unfold. His species had spent millennia becoming the perfect warriors, but in doing so, they had lost something these humans possessed in abundance: the ability to embrace imperfection as a path to improvement. Send a signal to all forces, he commanded finally. Stand down weapons, and prepare my personal shuttle. Supreme Commander, Krolvex questioned, his scales paling. I will speak to their leaders myself, Vexthor declared. The humans have proven something I never thought possible. There is strength in imperfection, power in adaptation, and wisdom in knowing when to change course. As his shuttle prepared for departure, Vexthor watched another human hybrid ship successfully disable a Nexarian cruiser using techniques that violated every principle of proper military doctrine. Perhaps, he reflected, it was time for the Nexarian Empire to learn some new principles. The United Earth Defense Council chamber fell silent as Supreme Commander Vexthor entered. The Nexarian leader's impressive height forced him to duck through the human-sized doorway, a small but symbolic gesture that wasn't lost on the assembled human representatives. Dr. Sarah Chen, the Council's chief scientist, studied their former enemy with professional curiosity. The Nexarians' iridescent scales shifted through subtle color patterns, a form of communication as complex as human facial expressions. Currently, they displayed an unusual mixture of respect and uncertainty. 3 months ago, Council Chairman Rodriguez began, your forces arrived in our solar system expecting an easy conquest. Today, you come seeking dialogue. Why? Vexthor's secondary eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture the humans had learned indicated careful consideration. Because you have shown us something no species has in 15,000 years of Nexarian expansion: the power of controlled chaos. The commander gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. It showed a human hybrid vessel, an ugly but effective combination of Earth and Nexarian technology. You took our perfect systems and made them better by making them imperfect. You showed us that there are paths to victory we had never imagined. We had no choice, General Zhang replied. Your technology was superior in every way. We had to find alternatives, exploit weaknesses, try things that probably shouldn't have worked. Exactly. Vexthor's scales rippled with excitement. Your species thrives on adversity. You do not simply adapt, you transform. Every defeat makes you stronger. Every setback teaches you. Every limitation becomes an advantage. Dr. Chen stepped forward, holding up a tablet displaying analysis of Nexarian biotechnology. Your biomechanical systems are remarkable. Perfect, even. But that perfection makes them predictable. We found we could anticipate how they would react to any stimulus. While human technology, Vexthor continued, is redundant, inefficient, and constantly changing. It shouldn't work as well as it does, yet somehow, His scales shifted to a deep purple of admiration. "We call it jury rigging," Rodriguez smiled. "Making things work with whatever's available. It's a human specialty." The chamber's displays filled with images from the conflict. Human engineers repurposing Nexarian biotechnology, civilian machinery converted to military use, makeshift weapons assembled from scavenged parts. To the Nexarians, it looked like chaos. To humans, it was innovation. "The Nexarian Empire has dominated the galaxy through perfection," Vexthor declared. "But you humans have shown us that perfection can be a weakness. We have forgotten how to improvise, how to think beyond our established patterns." He straightened to his full height, his scales taking on the formal patterns of official discourse. "I am here to propose an alliance. Not conquest, not submission, but true partnership. The Nexarian Empire offers humanity equal status, the first species ever to earn this honor." A murmur ran through the assembled council members. "Equal status?" Rodriguez questioned. "Just 3 months ago, you considered us primitive. 3 months ago, we were blind," Vexthor responded. "We saw your limited technology, your inefficient systems, your chaotic methods, and we thought you weak. We did not understand that these things were your strength." Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with scientific enthusiasm. "Think of the possibilities. Your biotechnology combined with our innovation. Your perfect systems enhanced by our adaptability." "Precisely," Vexthor agreed. "Already, your hybrid ships demonstrate capabilities we never imagined possible. Together, we could." An urgent alert interrupted him. Both human and Nexarian communication systems activated simultaneously. Unknown vessels detected entering the system. The automated warnings announced, "Configuration matches no known species." Vexthor's scales flickered rapidly as he accessed the tactical data. "A species from outside our known space," he announced. "Their technology is concerning." The council chamber's displays showed massive ships of unknown design approaching Earth. Their energy signatures dwarfed anything the Nexarians had encountered before. Chairman Rodriguez looked at Vexthor with a slight smile. "Well, Supreme Commander, it seems the universe is offering us an immediate opportunity to test our proposed alliance." Indeed, Vexthor's scales shifted to combat readiness, but now with undertones of anticipation rather than certainty. "Though I must admit, for the first time in my life, I find myself eager to see how a situation develops without knowing the optimal solution." "Welcome to the human way of doing things," Rodriguez grinned. "We'll make an improviser out of you yet." As the chamber erupted into activity, with humans and Nexarians already beginning to collaborate on defense strategies, Vexthor realized that his species had gained something far more valuable than another conquered world. They had found partners who could teach them how to embrace imperfection, adapt to chaos, and evolve beyond their own limitations. The unknown vessels drew closer, their intentions yet unclear. But for the first time in 15,000 years, the Nexarians faced a new challenge, not with the confidence of perfection, but with the excitement of uncertainty. They had learned from humanity that true strength lies not in being unbeatable, but in knowing how to rise again after being beaten, how to learn from failure, and how to turn apparent weakness into unexpected strength. The galaxy was about to discover that the combination of Nexarian perfection and human adaptability was far more formidable than either species alone. And somewhere in deep space, the approaching unknown vessels had no idea they were about to become an unwitting catalyst for the greatest technological and cultural renaissance the galaxy had ever seen.